Nearly 3,800 workers have just walked out of JBS's Swift Beef Company plant in Greeley, Colorado, turning down a 2% wage increase and launching the biggest US meatpacking strike since the 1985-86 Hormel strike. The stakes are high. This plant is a key part of America's meat supply, but its main workforce is now on the picket line. Can JBS keep the shelves stocked, or could the disruption ripple out? This isn't a brief standoff. The strike, led by United Food and Commercial Workers Local 7, is now entering its third week. JBS is maintaining limited operations at the Greeley plant and redistributing production to other facilities in an effort to keep up. But with nearly 3,800 workers off the job, the system is already under stress. How long before the cracks show? Since March 16th, this critical plant has been running at a fraction of its normal strength. The strain is real, not just for JBS, but potentially for the entire US meat supply chain if the standoff continues. Now, as the strike enters its third week, the pressure is intensifying. JBS USA is working to keep the plant running and is shifting production to other facilities. But with thousands still on strike, every backup is being tested. Each day the walkout continues, the risk of supply chain disruption grows. This is not just a local dispute. The Greeley plant is a major node in the national beef supply. The last time a US meatpacking strike reached this scale was 4 decades ago. Now, the industry is watching to see if JBS can contain the fallout or if the disruption will ripple outward, potentially tightening supplies and pressuring prices. The stakes are escalating fast. Swift Beef Company's Greeley plant is a critical hub in JBS's US operations, and its sudden paralysis is raising concerns throughout the supply chain. The confrontation is intensifying. JBS USA's 2% wage increase was rejected, prompting nearly 3,800 workers to walk off the job. With the plant now running on minimal staff and production being shifted to other facilities, the industry faces a looming question: how soon before supply cracks appear? And what happens if JBS's backup plans face additional pressure? The deadlock is deepening. The union is holding out for more than incremental gains, while JBS's emergency measures are being tested. The question is no longer if the disruption will challenge the company's network, but how much strain it can withstand before significant impacts emerge. With each passing day, the risk of broader supply chain disruption grows. If the standoff continues, vulnerabilities could increase, leaving distributors and retailers facing greater uncertainty. The industry is watching closely, and the true scale of the fallout remains to be seen. This episode exposes a structural weakness in the meat supply chain. Even a single plant, if large enough, can become a point of failure. The Greeley strike suggests that contingency plans, however robust on paper, may not be sufficient when labour action is prolonged and widespread. For JBS, the challenge is not just operational. It is a test of credibility and control. The company's ability to negotiate with its workforce, maintain production, and reassure downstream partners is now under scrutiny. The rejected wage offer and ongoing strike have shifted the balance of power, at least temporarily, away from management. The implications extend beyond this plant. Other producers, unions, and industry observers are watching to see how JBS responds. If the company concedes, it may set a precedent for future negotiations across the sector. If it holds firm, the risk of prolonged disruption grows. The Greeley strike also revives questions about labour conditions in the meatpacking industry. The plant was previously the site of a major COVID-19 outbreak in 2020, which resulted in federal fines for JBS. Now the focus has shifted from health and safety to wages and bargaining power. The lesson is narrow but significant. When a critical node in a supply chain fails, the effects are not easily contained. The Greeley walkout demonstrates how quickly a labour dispute can escalate into a test of resilience for an entire industry. There is no simple resolution. The strike remains unresolved and the risk of wider disruption persists. JBS's next move will be watched closely, not just by its workforce, but by every link in the supply chain that depends on the steady flow of beef from Greeley. In the end, the walkout at Greeley is a reminder even the largest players can be brought to a standstill by a single point of failure, and when that point is exposed, the consequences can spread far beyond the factory gates As the strike enters its third week, the industry is left with urgent questions. How long can JBS maintain limited operations before the strain becomes too great? Can other facilities truly compensate for the loss of Greeley's output, or will shortages begin to appear in certain markets? For now, JBS is relying on its national network, but the limits of that strategy are being tested in real time. For workers, the walkout is about more than wages. It's a stand for better conditions and a larger share of the value they help create. For JBS, it's a challenge to its ability to keep America's meat supply moving, even in the face of major disruption. The outcome of this standoff could shape labor relations in the industry for years to come. As negotiations remain stalled, the pressure is on all sides. Suppliers, retailers, and consumers are watching closely, aware that the next few weeks could determine whether this remains a contained crisis or becomes a turning point for the entire sector. The Greeley strike is a stress test for the US meatpacking industry, a reminder that even the most robust supply chains are only as strong as their most vulnerable links. The coming days will reveal whether JBS can weather the storm or if the shockwaves will spread further across the nation's dinner tables. CapitalRifts, where money breaks.